What is up, duelists, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh video. And today I want to present to you guys a little bit of an update to my Sky Striker deck, because I did bring it to the Dortmund regionals yesterday. Funnily enough, 2 months after YCS Dortmund, roughly, I brought Sky Striker to a regional in the same city, and I managed to win the regional with some of the new cards from the legendary modern decks as well. So I wanted to give you guys the list, and I do think it's interesting, even though the format is kind of coming to a close, but this deck is, in my opinion, a pretty good contender for the upcoming format, because Sky Striker does have a pretty good Cool Tune matchup. So I do think this deck's relevant post Blazing Dominion. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Without further ado, let's get into the deck list. Alright, so before we even start with the list, I want to give a huge shout out to the legendary modern decks, I suppose, because they even made it possible for me to play this deck. Because, I mean, of course, I have all the Sky Striker cards, but I didn't bring them with me because I was actually going on a little bit of a road trip over multiple days this past weekend, and I played a regional on Saturday with Branded, and I was actually planning to play the same deck on Sunday again. But my Saturday didn't go too well with Branded. I didn't end up doing well at that regional, and then I wanted to play something else. I didn't bring my Sky Striker cards with me, though. But one of my friends just had a legendary modern deck at hand, so it was really easy for me to get the cards together, which was really awesome. So it's really nice that decks like this are easy to get like that. But also, you know, the rarities in my deck are a little bit all over the place for that reason, but it's fine. Also, shout outs to Young Cards again for the amazing Sky Striker mat I already used at YCS Dortmund. You can check the link to their store in the description down below. I don't know if it's sold out yet. It might already be, since it was very popular, but if it's still there, you can use Josh10 for 10% off. Let's get started with the deck list, though. All right, so I mean, of course, it goes without saying, we're using Triple Ray. A change that I made to the deck is only one rose, and some of you are going to call me crazy for this, but I mean, you guys know I hate drawing this card. I'm still playing Pot of Desires. We'll talk about that later, but for this regional, I decided to just take the risk with one rose, because I just thought drawing this card was more detrimental to my games than actually banishing off of Desires, and that theory held up pretty well, I would say. I banished it off of Desires once or twice, never lost the game because of it. Some games got harder because of it, and in the finals as well, I made the decision, because I had a pretty solid start going first. I drew Desires as well. Actually, I drew 2 Desires. I opened one, and then I drew another one off Engage later on the turn. I decided not to activate it because my opener was already solid, and I didn't want to risk losing my rose. I had a lot of back row already, and so I just didn't activate my 2 copies of Pot of Desires. Which was definitely a decision sometimes you have to make. It's annoying. Sometimes I just searched it with Engage to make sure I don't banish it with Desires as well. You can play around with it. I feel like one is fine, but I'll talk about that later. I think there's also a way you can cut Desires from the deck, and we'll talk about that, because there's another version I would have played maybe if I had the cards, but I didn't have the cards for it. So yeah. 3 Ash Blossom is the only hand trap in the deck right now to negate Fuwalos, mainly when you're going first, and just to back up your board when you're going first. Going second, the card is mediocre, but the deck's end board is a little bit too fair, so I decided to still play the Ash Blossoms. No Bell or Droll in the main deck, because I took out the cross out, because I wanted the deck to be a little bit more consistent than what I had in Dortmund, so I made it a 40 card list ultimately. So these 7 are the only monsters I'm playing. For the spells, we've got Triple Engage, Triple Widow Anchor, Triple Linkage, Double Lemniscate. Actually, this is a change that I've made since Dortmund. I believe I only played 1 in Dortmund. I just like this card a lot, and for Dortmund, it was mostly Dinka Bui who told me to play 1 because he hated it. Yesterday, I just went with my gut feeling and played a second one, and I didn't mind it at all. I like it. I like never having to worry about banishing this with Desires. Or at least it's very unlikely. I also think it's one of the best cards you can discard for Radiant Typhoon Vision, because it actually has value if it's in the graveyard. And I just like having 2 in rotation of this. And I don't mind drawing it, because it's just, as long as you can play, of course. Like, if you brick, this card is not going to do anything for you. But as long as you can play the game, I think it's a pretty good interruption and sets you up for the grind game. So I like it. Card number 40 was Eagle Booster. Honestly, this card didn't really come up for me much. In theory, it's nice to protect your 0 from Ash and Bell, but didn't really happen for me. Didn't draw it very often. It was fine. It was just card number 40 I threw into the deck, because honestly, like I said, I didn't bring that many cards with me. I'm not sure what else it would have been. It could be like Bell and Crossout, and then you make it 41 or something, but this card doesn't feel 100% necessary right now, but it's all right. It's mainly important, or the main reason why we played it at Dortmund was because it helps you in the Radiant Typhoon matchup, because it makes sure you survive the turn. There isn't that much Radiant Typhoon right now, so I feel like it's cuttable. Shark Cannon, on the other hand, I feel like is phenomenal right now, because there's an an increase in Mitsurugi decks right now, at least from what I'm seeing at the moment in Europe. Mitsurugi is one of, if not the most popular deck at the moment, and Shark Cannon is great against Mitsurugi. You can banish the rituals before they can trigger if they tribute them for cost. You can revive their Murakumo, wipe the board, force them to discard. You can steal Azamina Ilia Sylvia against all of the Azamina decks that have been popping up. So I've been liking this card a ton. And then the Hornet Drones, I've been not a fan of this for a long time, but nowadays, or at the moment, I just always play it because it's just another great way to start or extend. And now that we do have Camellia as well, it's really easy to just turn, you know, Hornet Drones into more ways to start playing as well. So yeah. Troll Plot Desire still. I am not sure if I really needed this card, honestly, and the alternative that I was referring to earlier is I was thinking about a Radiant Typhoon Sky Striker build, because now that we have Camellia, the Radiant Typhoon cards can actually be starters for Sky Striker, because you can just special make Camellia, and there you go. And they also set you up with 3 spells in the graveyard. You know, if you start with Radiant Typhoon Chant, you search for Eldam, Eldam searches for Swen, Swen searches for Vision, and then you draw 2, discard 1 spell, and then you have 3 spells in the grave, and you have access to engage via Camellia. So it was something I was thinking about on Saturday night, but I couldn't find anyone who had the Radiant Typhoon cards on them for the regional on Sunday. So I went with the classic approach to Sky Striker. But honestly, I think taking out the Desires and maybe making it a Radiant Typhoon build could work. It's something I haven't really experimented with. It was just a thought that I had. So if you wanna try that, then go ahead. I think there's some potential for it. One thing I also would have done in that version, which I think is incredibly cool, is I think I would have sided Proceus for going second if you're playing against a deck that has quick play spells, so that when your opponent like starts playing and activate quick plays, you just special Crocea and search 2 cards. So you start with extra cards and guaranteed ways to put a bunch of spells in the grave and pressure the board, which I think is much better now, because with Camellia, you have ways to convert those bodies back into Sky Striker, right? That was something that at Dortmund wasn't really available. So those bodies would just be chilling on your board, and you had no way to really, you know, do anything with them. But I think now that we have Camellia, you can really consider more hybrid variations of this deck with Radiant Typhoon, or also people are playing Mitsu in this deck, which is also fine. But the Radiant Typhoon really caught my eye, and I really wanted to try it. Unfortunately, didn't have the cards, so I went with the good old Desires, and it was fine. Triple Upstart, I still am a Upstart defender, believer. I will fight for this card to the death. This card is phenomenal, and I don't see a reason not to play this card in this deck. Makes it more consistent and helps you get engaged for a draw. On turn 1, I think that is really good. Also, free send for linkage is always nice if that's your only starter. Yeah, big fan of Upstart in this deck. Would not play without it. Would honestly, like I did in Dortmund, would rather go over 40 even with Upstart rather than cutting Upstart. Yes, it makes your deck weaker into Droll, but I'm gonna be honest with you, this deck is very bad into Droll and Lockbird anyways. And I don't think that's really an argument for cutting Upstart Goblin. And honestly, like, there's a lot of decks right now, like Mitsurugi builds as well, like a lot of decks that are super weak into Droll. Droll is semi-limited at this point. Like, I was just making the call of like, yeah, you know, I just want to play a max consistency deck so I can beat all the other hand traps in the format. If I do get Drolled, especially behind the board, then so be it. I sided it out sometimes just to make room for the cards in my side deck, but it should be in your deck, in my opinion. 3 Vision, 1 Space Typhoon. This card is obviously phenomenal, even if I didn't have the other Radiant Typhoon cards available. But I think, yeah, with those other cards, this card could be even better. But for now, I mean, of course, you're going to play this card. And then we have 3 Forbidden Droplet for your non-engine, as well as 3 Fallen and the Virtuous. Card is still phenomenal, of course, setting you up for the grind game, answering all kinds of threats. Then we have 1 Talents, 1 Rhoda, and 1 Callpie in the main deck for a clean 40. Like I said, no Bell, no Crossout anymore compared to the Dortmund list. And I believe there is a second Lemnis Gate over a second Rose. But yeah, other than that, it's been a similar list to what I played in Dortmund. I do think, however, the Radiant Typhoon version of this deck is also really interesting. So you can maybe take that as a little bit of an idea from this and try it for yourself. For the extra deck, we have a couple of changes. There's 000, of course. 3 Kagaris, artworks all over the place, because once again, I borrowed the legendary decks and a couple of other cards from other people. But yeah, still 3 and 3. Decided to forego Typhon for these to be able to play 3 and 3. I played a Sky Striker mirror match where my opponent lost because they only played 2 Kagaris. So I feel kind of vindicated in playing these. I mean, there's not a lot of games where they come up as 3-ofs. I personally think I would cut a 0 before I would cut a Kagari. That's my gut feeling, but I really like playing 3 and 3 just to be safe. A Shizuku, a Hayate, of course. Amatsu, this card, honestly, in my opinion, matters way more than Camellia for the pure Sky Striker deck. The amount of times where this card comes up is phenomenal. This card has a lot of little uses, which individually are not that crazy. So the reason why this card has, like, there's a couple of small things about this card. So first of all, of course, the obvious effect that everyone kind of knows, or the thing that people think is the best about this card, is that it checks monsters with 2000 attack, right? If your opponent activates a monster effect of a monster with 2000 attack, you can change that effect to destroy a Sky Striker monster your opponent controls, which is obviously good. So this card, for example, it came up in one of my games against Magnet Warrior that it was an option for me to negate Naturia Beast with this, right? Like, for example, if you are trying to play against a Naturia Beast against Magnet Warrior, you can summon this instead of 0, because 0 can obviously also pop the Naturia Beast, but 0 can get belled, for example, or ashed, right? But the Amatsu can't. So this is something you can try to do. Or other things, like I negated some cards in the tournament with this, which was nice. But also the other effects that it has are neat. When an attack is declared involving it, you can just pop a card, which is nice. That comes up when you're breaking boards. And also its attribute is really important because it's a dark monster, which means you can go 0, summon Ray and Rose, and then the Ray can tag out into a Kagari, and now you have a light and a fire, which means you cannot make Azalea, but you can turn the Kagari into Amatsu now, which makes it so you can actually make Azalea, because you have 2 lights and darks, which is nice, which comes up a ton, actually, because that's the exact play pattern. That's exactly what you want to do, right? When you're using 0 on the opponent's turn, usually that Ray wants to become a Kagari, so you have follow-up, and then sometimes you're stuck with this position at the start of the turn, and you would like to go into an Azalea to pop a card. And that is something that comes up a lot. So that's honestly even the most relevant thing about this is the attribute, but the other things are nice bonuses as well. Camellia, in the pure build, honestly, it doesn't come up that much. Sometimes I've summoned it like twice in 7 rounds, but when it does come up, it's nice. You know, you can use it for an extra spell in the graveyard just to make sure your engaged draws cards. You can use Talents to take, Widow Anchor to take more freely, and then actually turn those bodies back into Sky Strikers, whereas previously you'd always have to make Zeke, which you still play, but sometimes Camellia is just better than Zeke, which is nice. The graveyard effect of this card is also pretty neat for removal purposes. So this is the Sky Striker lineup, 12 Sky Striker links. Been very happy with this. Would not like to play less. If you really want to play less, I think these one-ofs down here you all have to play. One of each of these I think is cuttable if you're trying to play like Super Poly or something, but I really feel more comfortable having 3 of each available. But especially with double Lemnis Gate, you could consider playing less of Kagari and 0. SP is the card I summoned the least out of the extra deck, but I feel like you still play it just to be safe. You know, there's like every time you draw linkage, this card just can't be summoned. But whenever you don't have linkage, this card is technically a pretty neat option. So I would like to have it, but yeah. And then I'm only playing 2 targets for Fallen and the Virtuous right now, which is a little annoying. I wish I could play 3, but the extra deck, as you can see, is pretty tight, and I valued the 3rd copy of each of these more than the utility. Like, for example, you could play 2/2, and then the cards I would play next are like a 2nd Albion and a Typhon. Those are the cards I played in Dortmund instead of these 2, right? But yeah, I never really missed them that much either. You know, I was fine all weekend. I missed the 2nd Albion like once in a game that went very long, and I missed the Typhon, I think, never. So I think it works out this way. All right, and now the side deck. This is where I made the most changes from Dortmund. For one, because the format has changed a little bit, but also because I just simply didn't have all the cards with me that I maybe would have played, but I'll talk about that in a second. I decided to side deck 3 Fuwas. I think this card is necessary now to an extent because there is more combo stuff in the format. Stuff like Azamina, Dragoon, Yami, whatever, like those kind of decks. Also, there's more Malice. So against those decks, when you're going second, you're going to have a harder time breaking the board. And those are not the greatest matchups for Sky Striker if you're going second. So if I lose the dice roll to any of those decks, I need an option like this in the side deck, I believe, because the boards are just not consistently breakable. So I went with Fuwa. Didn't activate Fuwa a single time in the event, I think. Just never drew it. Also, there was a lot of matchups where I simply didn't side it. because I don't side it against Draco Tail, for example, because against Draco Tail, if it gets ashed, it's a disaster. In other matchups, if it gets ashed, it's fine, because you're at least trading with the Ash Blossom. Against Draco Tail, it's bad, because if they ash it, they get to add the ash back, and then they have board plus ash against your 1 card last hand, which is not great. In other matchups, ash is so good against you that you don't mind trading a Fuwa for it. But like I said, against the combo heavier decks, I feel like you should probably have it. Also, it usually makes games faster if people aren't comboing for the full length, right? So that can help sometimes. Double Droll, mainly for, once again, similar to the Fuwa for other heavy combo decks, but also Radiant Typhoon, and also because I am siding Cross out for going first, so we can put the Droll in there, which is also what 1 Bell is for. Good against Draco Tail, and then good in general to side if you see your opponent plays it, you can put it in with Cross out. So yeah. Still Double Thrust, big fan of this card for going second because it gives you more consistent access to engine, but can also turn into some board breakers, like for example Double Lightning Storm and Feather Duster, which I like a lot because there's a lot of mirror matches running around. I played 2 mirror matches in the tournament, which were phenomenal games and really, really fun. And this card is really, really strong in the mirror match. And just in general, there's a lot of matchups where these cards are great. I also played 1 copy of Illusion Gate because it helps you break boards, forces out negations, and also with Camellia, you can now turn those bodies into your engine, actually. Like, that actually comes up. And I actually used this card in one of the mirror matches as my only starter. There was a mirror match where I went second into, like, it was a Link monster and, like, 4 or 5 sets, I don't remember. And then I just went Duster, popped the back row, Illusion Gate, popped the monster, steal the raise so it doesn't come back on their side. Instead, I get it, which was pretty sick. So, yeah. 1 cross out for Ash, Droll, and Bell, mainly. 1 different dimension ground just for Draco Tail for the triple tactics thrust, mainly, and just 1 Solemn Judgment. I decided, so once again, Forbidden Crown is a card that people have been asking me about it, and Shared Ride. Both of those cards I simply didn't have with me because I wasn't playing them in Branded, and I was planning to play Branded all weekend. But I'm not sure if I would have played Forbidden Crown, actually, because cards like Lightning Storm and Feather Duster have become more popular, I feel like, these days. And, I mean, you can chain Crown to Duster on your own monster, which is fine. But still, I don't know how I feel about siding more cards that are weak to these when everyone else is siding them. And so I feel like the judgment was good for this because it helps you against those cards. You can protect from it. And if they don't have those cards, then, well, you're going to solemn one of their plays, which is also really strong, of course. And yeah, initially I was considering playing more copies of Different Dimension Ground, but honestly, I don't feel like there's that many matchups where you really want it. Like, there's a lot of like Mitsurugi decks and stuff where the card isn't really that great. For those matchups, you would probably want Shared Ride. But then again, if they Duster or Lightning Storm you and you chain Shared Ride, like, yeah, in theory, that's still good. But at the same time, because you play Sky Striker, they probably just go in and go for game, and we don't have much to stop that. So you would have to pair that with something like Nibiru, which you could. I think Nibiru is actually better in this deck than people give it credit for. Especially now that we have Camellia, so you can really easily translate the Nibiru back into Sky Striker engine. But yeah, I just went with this approach for now, and I thought it was fine. We have a good mix here between like just a couple of cards for going first, but mainly we can choose between, well, our board breaker is good in this matchup, or do we have to go with the Charmy Droll approach for like the heavy combo decks, which worked out fine for me overall. But I also will say I played against a very heavy combo Mitsurugi. It was Mitsurugi, Azamina, Yami, Sky Striker, I believe, all in one deck. That was my round 1, which I think if I lose the dice roll there, I'm in a really, really tough spot, unless I high roll with like Roller Fuwa in like game 3. But I did win the dice roll against that, luckily, and was able to take it. And then in round 7, I played against Malice, which is also a hard matchup when you're going second, and I also luckily won the dice roll there, which were, I went 3 and 4 in dice rolls. And the good thing for me on this weekend was that I lost the dice roll in matchups where the dice roll doesn't feel that relevant. Like, for example, I lost the dice roll in 2 Sky Striker mirror matches, which is completely fine. Like, the Sky Striker mirror is not dependent on the dice roll at all. So that was kind of fortunate there, because there's definitely a couple of high ceiling decks in the format where if you don't win the dice roll, you're probably losing game 1, and then you need help from these cards in game 3. But yeah, that's what they're here for. So yeah. Anyways, this is the Sky Striker list. I'm very happy to finish the regional season, because this was the last regional of the season for me personally, with a win, even though it was a smaller regional, like 110-ish players, 7 rounds. Not the most amount of points, but still happy to finish the season with a win. It feels good, especially since I went back to one of my favorite decks of the format, if not my favorite deck of the format. You know, I've been playing a lot of the more quote-unquote standard decks on recent regionals where I was doing fine. I went like X2 with Draco Tail at a couple of regionals. Tried my hands at Branded, which was also fun. But now it feels good winning with my favorite deck of the format, pretty much going back to what I know the best. And that was really, really cool. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the deck profile. Make sure to leave a comment down below of how you think this deck can perform in the upcoming format, because I definitely have my eyes on this for Cool Tune format. It's a deck I'm definitely considering for German Nationals coming up. But yeah, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Without further ado, I'll see you next time, Duelists. Bye-bye.